Hello everyone and welcome back to another great super cool radio interview. I'm your host always, Matthew Thomas. Thank you so much for tuning in. Before I start talking about my guest, just a quick reminder to like this video if you enjoy it and make sure to subscribe and turn that notification bell. That way you not miss any super cool radio interviews or episodes. I got an amazing guest who'll be joining us momentarily. He is best known as the bassist and lead vocalist for Presidents of the United States of America. Plus, he has his own solo work and toddler music, Casper Baby Pants. He is Chris Ballou. I can't believe I actually had the opportunity to interview him. He's an amazing person, and we had a great conversation. We talked about recording music with Sir Mix-a-Lot, his solo work, including his new solo album, Bone by Bone, how Casper Baby Pants got started, and so much more. So let's dive into this interview. Let's go! Super Cool Radio! Before we jump into the show, I want to tell you about our merch store on Threadless. Shop a wide variety of logos with multiple colors and sizes available for each design. Your support is greatly appreciated and helps us continue to make killer content like this episode. Please visit supercoolradio.threadless.com or the link in the description to shop now. I got an incredible guest with me at this time. He's best known as the lead vocalist and bassist for Presidents of the United States of America. Plus, he has Casper Baby Pants music for toddlers and his own solo material. Please welcome Chris Ballou.
Yay! Cue crowd noise and applause.
Thank you so much for joining me. It's awesome to have you on the show.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your invitation. It's great to be here.
Of course. And before we really jump into everything, I know you got new solo material for this year, plus a lot of other great things. But I want to start with this question because I'm curious. I sometimes ask this question to guests. So I'm curious for you. What is one album, one movie, and one book you would recommend someone should check out in their lifetime?
Wow. Okay. Album. Boy, check out in a lifetime. I mean, can it be, are you looking for something that's like, sort of a diamond in the rough or something that, can it be something everybody already knows?
Whatever you're feeling, however you want to answer. I'm not looking for anything specific. I'm just wondering what you would consider like this is something you have to check out before you pass away kind of thing.
Well, I guess I'm living in the future. So meaning like, when I was a little kid, if I imagine the year 2023, it was like an unfathomable future. So I'm sure there are people who don't know what Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band is out there. So there's a band called the Beatles, kids, and they made this record. And I started listening to it when I was a very young kid, maybe 2, 3, 4. I think I was 3.5 or 4 when I started listening to it. And it just absolutely blew my mind because it was this hallucinatory experience for a little kid's mind. All the songs are different. The whole album flows through all these atmospheres, and I just used to listen to it and be completely blown away, and I still am blown away by it, and it's kind of why I want to make music. I wanted to join the club that the Beatles were in on that record. So anyway, that's my record. Movie is a bit of a diamond in the rough. There's a movie called The Legend of 1900 with Tim Roth and Pruitt Taylor Vince. And I've probably seen it 20 times. It's set at the turn of the century. Well, it's set more in the 20s. And it's a kind of a jazz music score by Ennio Morricone, who did the good, like all the spaghetti westerns. Boo, dum, 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 that guy. And it is just the most brilliant movie about music and about limitations and about bravery. And it's just gorgeous, And then book, let me think for a second on book. There's this book. Well, I guess I'll go with an Eckhart Tolle book. I mean, I read a new Earth, and it kind of rearranged my molecules in a super delightful way. And that's also his philosophy and ideas, and Ram Dass, who I love. Both of those guys are kind of sprinkled in my new solo stuff, their perspectives. So I'm gonna go with Eckhart Tolle, A New Earth.
Really great picks for all. I'm not too familiar with the movie or the book, but I'm definitely going to check those out. Obviously, I'm a Beatles fan, so obviously I've listened to Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club, and I've seen the movie for it as well. Which
you mean one with the Bee Gees and all that stuff?
Yeah, I believe that was around the same time. I believe, right?
No, that's later. That's like
later. Okay,
in the 70s. I'm not sure. I don't think I've ever seen that movie. I'm kind of avoiding it. I don't want anything to screw with the original. Like,
yeah, I think for you might want to hold off on that. I mean, I enjoyed it, but also like I kind of saw the movie and then listened to the album, so I don't know if that's the correct order.
I think the correct order is listen to the album, don't watch the movie.
You might be right. Be right. I did like there was a cameo by Alice Cooper, and Alice Cooper is my favorite artist. So that's
there you go.
Part of the reason I did watch it, even though he looked nothing like. They had him like makeup and like he looked very different than what he normally does, which is kind of interesting for Alice Cooper.
Yeah.
But all very good picks, and I did want to talk about. I got a lot of things to talk about, but but I was curious. So I know for you've been I would say very clear in your previous interviews that I've watched about taking hiatus and from music and tour, from mostly like touring and like band commitments. Was there any kind of like adjustment period for you to like not have to travel and tour and do band commitments?
That's interesting. I feel like I'm kind of experiencing that adjustment period now, because when I shelved the Presidents for good, we signed off in January of 1998. We signed back on in December of 2002. And then I started Casper in 2010. And so I did Casper and the Presidents for 6 years or 5 years. And then in 2015, the Presidents paused for good and Casper kept going. So I didn't really, and that was intense. I mean, I was a total DIY operation. I was booking all the shows and playing. I played like 1,300 shows as Casper. So the pandemic actually is where I stopped and really kind of realized how difficult performing is. Like, I'm good at it and I can do it, but there's all this stress around it. Like, what if I lose my voice? What if I get sick? And there was a general attitude, and as far as the rock band goes, that I had kind of, grown weary of the volume. Like, it was really loud. My ears were screwed up, and it was just taking a toll on my body, and like not eating well and touring all over the place and trying to get good sleep and exercise and all that kind of stuff. So, the pandemic hit, and that's when I kind of realized, oh, I feel really relieved. That's interesting. Why do I feel so relieved? I should feel sad because I'm not playing, but I'm not sad. I'm super relieved. And it just kind of came to me that I just needed a real clear break from being the guy in the room that everybody's looking at, to provide an elevated experience. I just want to be I just want to be a guy, and as much as I can be. So the moratorium on performing maybe won't last forever, but it's a very solidly kind of positive experience for me right now, just kind of not putting that pressure on myself. So I like it. And these solo records I'm making are just, it's like a hobby kind of thing. I'm really pouring a lot of energy into it. And, like if I look back over my life, me hunched over a 4-track or now on a computer, like making music, that's my natural habitat. I mean, I have so many hours of fragments and songs and ideas and different styles of music that I've recorded over the decades. So I'm way more kind of multicolored than the rock and roll band. I always thought of the rock band as primary colors, like red, green, blue, or red, blue, yellow. And when I work alone, I can use every color in the paint box, and that's kind of my natural habitat, really. So, yeah, that's the long answer for that question.
No problem. I was just curious because, like, even like with my stuff, I was extremely busy last year, and this year I've kind of scaled back because like to focus on my health and and other things. So I was just curious because for me there was an adjustment period of I wasn't going out every weekend. Like I had more time to do other things. So I was just curious for you because obviously you're doing the whole music thing for decades. So trying to adjust to not doing as much. That's why I was curious for that one.
Yeah, there is an adjustment, and I didn't really address that. I addressed the reasons, but not the adjustment. I'm a people pleaser deep down, which is kind of my greatest strength and my greatest weakness. It's like, it's what drives me to write music. I want to make people feel better, even if it's the ambient stuff I do or this new solo stuff or Casper Baby Pants or Presidents. It's all about trying to make people feel better. But then that impulse to please people also sometimes short circuits my own true needs. And so the adjustment period was really like realizing, oh, this is what I really want. But then it is kind of like saying goodbye to another aspect of my musical life. It's a little bit like a death or a passing away of this like era. That's why I say never, because, I might bring it back from the dead. But yeah, so it is an adjustment. It's a little bit of a letting go and kind of there's a little bit of sadness to it. And then I get emails from people all the time like, come on, play live. I just got an email from a guy who books a festival around here who is, even though people know I'm retired, they're still like, I know you're retired, but you want to play? And that is kind of hard because then I have to be like the bummer guy over and over and over. Like, no, I don't. But it is really the first time I'm saying what I really want. When the Presidents were jumping off and were signed and all over MTV and touring and everything, my deep down gut impulse was to destroy it. Like the Sex Pistols, just like stop at the height of everything and freeze ourselves in this perfect state forever. And I didn't have the guts to act on it at the time. And it would have disappointed a lot of people, but that's what I really wanted to do. So anyway, that's kind of my thoughts on that.
No, that's very interesting. That is very interesting. Just so how would you have felt if you did go through with that, with disbanding at the height? Was that something
I think I would have been fine with it. I saw so the Presidents to me were just another in a long line of collaborative band environments that I'd put myself in, while also having a really healthy kind of alone with a 4-track. Experimental life. But then the Presidents kind of took over everything, and that sort of, mad scientist with the recording gear world kind of got atrophied during that time. But I don't know. That's hard to say. It's really hard to get off of a pony when the pony is writing, or when you're riding the pony that is shitting gold bricks. It's really hard to get off that pony.
No, I totally got it.
It's like this is never going to happen again. So maybe I should squeeze it, and we were a very lean operation. We were always about, let's come home with money from all this effort. Let's be smart. We were a little older when we got signed. It was like, I was 30 and Dave was, I think, 31, and Jason was the kid. He was like 26 or something, 27. But yeah, anyway, we always had like kind of a, I don't know, responsible attitude. We used to be on tour and people would show us, like, tell us for a photo shoot or something, be there at 2:00. And we were there at 2:00 and they're like, what are you guys doing here? Need you until 3:30. But they would tell us to be there because they think like all rock bands are slow and, spaced out, and not us. We were right on time.
No, right on. Yeah, I know. I've experienced that sometimes too. Right, someone tells me a certain time and actually show up. Like when someone invites me to a party, like, okay, party starts at 4, so I'm like there like 4:01. I'm there, and they're like, we haven't set up yet. What are you doing here?
Totally. Yes. That's me too, for sure.
So it's always a little bit awkward. So now I kind of give it like 20 or 30 minutes, then I show up, and then sometimes I do, and they're like, "Hey, you're late. Why didn't you show up?" I'm like, "I can't win. I can't win."
What the hell? Yeah.
But I totally understand. Like, at least with you guys, I've talked to other touring bands or signed bands, and like money's a little bit tight. But at least with you guys, you're very, as you said, very responsible with making sure you did get money. That you were paid and you were smart with your with the money you did get. And so I think it did help. Do you think it helped being signed like later when you were 30? When the band was around 30 or 26, being the youngest.
Yeah, I think so. Although I always, even as a little kid, I remember hearing stories of people who were famous and lost all their money, or child stars who ended up in ruins. And I remember being pretty little, maybe 8 or 9, 10 years old, and just thinking, that's not going to happen to me. I was assuming I was going to be famous because I was already like so enamored with the idea of getting to do this on a large scale. And I just remember really clearly being like, nope, I'm not going down that path. I'm going to be loose and free with the music and tight and smart with the money. So I got to do it.
Yeah, for sure. And I did like it. You had a big assumption when you were 8 that you were going to be famous, but hey, I mean, it did work out.
I mean, yeah, it's funny. I remember even as like in my 20s or something, if I saw a documentary about a famous musician and they would show pictures from when they were little, I was like, someday they're going to have to show my pictures from when I was little. I was just like totally assuming that it was going to happen. I mean, I don't know. I have a general long-standing lifetime relationship with manifesting, actually. I mean, I just decide I'm going to do something and I do it. And then, I mean, a lot of the work of being successful is just putting in the time, being bad for a long time so that you can eventually get to be good. But it's just like that 10,000 hours thing is real. You just have to put in the time. And if you don't do that, you'll definitely never get anywhere. But at least you're in the game and you're swinging the bat if you put in the hard work. So I never had a problem with that.
No, exactly. It's it is about putting in the hard work, even if people don't see it. Even if I think I forgot who. Someone said a quote that it took me like 10 years to become an overnight sensation. I forgot who said that quote, but it is very true.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, and I would have done it. I remember distinctly actually when I was, how old was I? Maybe 27. And I was living with my parents again. I'd been to Boston and back to Seattle and back and forth, and I was kind of a vagabond a little bit. I didn't have anywhere to stay in Seattle, so I was living with my parents. And my mom was kind of coming down on me, like, and she's always been very supportive, but she was like, well, you might want to just like, what would you do if you couldn't do music? And I was like, oh, maybe radio, I guess. So I got all these resumes for radio stations, and I was sitting at the dining room table filling one out. I got about halfway through it. I just went, no. I can't do it. And the thing I said to my mom was, Mom, if I have to eat ketchup on cardboard for the rest of my life, I'm going to do it in order to be just a free musician, just somebody who can explore with sound. And I tore up all the resumes and just went on living with my parents. And my daughter's living with me now, so it's kind of a wonderful full circle.
That's definitely a full circle. But I mean, you were willing to put in the sacrifices to reach to become as you said, a free musician. There's definitely a lot of sacrifice for any career, really. Any kind of like, especially in the entertainment, there's the sacrifice, and people have to be willing to do that along with the hard work to at least try to achieve their goal. Yeah,
totally. I mean, I just knew that I didn't care how I had to live. The sacrifice, I guess, for me would be I would live sub-poverty level if I had to, just to scrape by. And I did for a long time. I had a ton of jobs that were, I loved the most mindless jobs. Like I worked in an amusement park for years, just putting kids on rides, running the roller coaster, running the Ferris wheel, just round and round and round, offload, 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 round and round and round, offload, onload, 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 off. It's just like, it didn't take much brain power, all very purposefully. So I'd save brain power for when I got home and I could crack open the recording gear and just, make stuff, make sound. So, yeah.
That's actually a good perspective and take on that. Like, like the you had that sort of job, but also to save, like energy level, and your mindset and all that stuff for recording music. It's actually pretty good. I like that.
Yeah, thanks. And I used to show up. I did temping in law firms, like alphabetizing files and stuff like that. And I used to get promoted all the time because I showed up on time and I did the job they asked me to do. And I was like, oh my God, the bar is so low. And I remember I would reluctantly accept more responsibility, but I was always kind of like, I don't want more responsibility. I just want to do the dumb job and then get home and still have energy,
That's actually funny that promoted the guy who doesn't really want or need a promotion. It would just like, yeah, we can promote you. You showed up, you did the job. Like, I'm unfortunately even like nowadays, like that's the bar. As long as you show up and do your job, like that's pretty much it.
I think temp agencies are used to dealing with people who don't do either. Like show up
or
late,
never show up,
or never show up. Like people you've booked on your podcast.
Exactly, but like. Yeah, I've experienced that with obviously podcasting, but also like jobs and stuff. Is I was waiting to hear back from a job, and like apparently the other person didn't show up for the interview, so I got the job. I was like, well, that worked out.
Default.
Hey, I'll take it. Hey, I'll take that win. I have no problem with that.
Sure, man.
But no, I mean, it's unfortunately that is kind of like. For jobs, temping especially, but like that's just the bar is just as long as you show up. Like that's like one of the biggest hurdles is just having people show up.
I know. Well, these days, I mean, there's ways to make money online that are revolutionary. You can be in your studio. Actually, one of the jobs I had was setting up cold calling businesses to see if my older brother, was working in computers networks in the 90s. Like, in an office, they want all the computers to talk to each other and share data and stuff like that. So local area networks. And I would call businesses cold and just sort of say, hey, what's your network like? And set up appointments for my brother. And that I did from home with a computer. And I had each like client and all the, history of the interaction in there. But if I got a song idea, I would just stop calling and turn to my 4-track and work on songs. I wrote Lunatic to Love one day during a cold calling session, and I just turned and started writing this song and made up Lunatic to Love, and then went back to calling. So every time I hear that song, I think about standing there at my desk working on getting my brother appointments and hammering out Lunatic to Love, which actually has a line in it that I got from my sister, the Dozy in the Theater line. It was a way that she was saying that somebody wasn't too sharp. She's dozy in the theater.
Nice. It's just so cool, like how, like when inspiration strikes, it could be at the most like random times that you're cold calling, and like you just got this inspiration to write this song. So obviously you stop what you're doing to do that. But it's just so cool, like when I hear stuff like that, just when inspiration strikes people. Yeah,
it's amazing. It was just a dream job because it really wasn't very hard, and I got to do it at home. It was amazing. So that was a win. That job was great, and I worked on commission, so I only got paid if I got him work. So anyway, it worked out. It was great.
Definitely very cool for sure. I do got a few things I do want to cover. Obviously, before this interview. So in January, you released your latest solo album, Bone by Bone. So for you, like I'm curious. So is like all the music and the lyrics. So do you work with other musicians, or just purely like you recording with your instruments and writing the music?
It's a complete solo thing. Like I really wanted to just be left alone. The thing that I've discovered is I'm really not supposed to be in a band because I have a ruthless focus on what makes the song go, what makes the song really sparkle and blossom. And a lot of times in the recording arc, where I start with some improvisation maybe, or a beat I like, or some chords or lyrics even, and then it gets all put together and it gets on the top of the arc. It's real messy. I've added way too much stuff. Just like, let me throw on a guitar and I'll throw on a piano. Yay, boom, 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 boom. And then the song is just like heavy, like lost sort of under lots of layers. And then I started squeegeeing away the layers and having what Nancy Wilson from Heart calls a mute party, where you decide, you're like, what can I mute? I'm muting that. Oh, mute that. But then I'll keep like maybe the distorted guitar that I had on the whole track, I'll keep it for like one measure here where it's like really working. So it's all about kind of this like, reverse Tetris of taking things out. And if I have to explain to the guitar player why I'm deleting the entire guitar track, that's a bummer, And if the guitar player is me, I can handle it, And then a lot of times I'll start with a drum beat or something and decide this song doesn't need drums at all. So, or it just needs like, a 4 on the floor, a little kick. So yeah, there's a lot of explaining and toes that I don't step on when I'm working by myself. And also the way I work is real slow and long. Like it takes, so I'm always working on a giant batch of songs and I'm listening to them randomly and like, okay, the guitar there needs to be a little louder, or that bass line is wrong, it needs to be replayed. And then I'll go in and work for maybe a couple hours and then I'm away. So the lifetime of a song is years long, like it takes like at least a year. So the albums that I put out that one in January. It's like a bottle of wine. It's been aging. Like I only release the songs that have completely aged. And so it's not like time to make a record, go into the studio, here's a bunch of songs, make the record, then release it. I don't do that at all. I'm constantly like skimming the very best off the top of the song cheese.
That's a good description. I like that.
Yeah. So I'm skimming the like cream off the song cheese vat for every album. So theoretically, every song on every album should be the best it can be, and it's just the best I can do at that time, So even though as I finish albums, I also get inspired and I write fresh songs, and I'm tempted like, oh, I should just put this brand new song on here. I don't do it, and then almost all the time, I'm so glad I didn't, because I'll discover, oh, it's in the wrong key, or it's too slow, or whatever. Like 6 months later, I'll unlock the code to the song. So anyway, that's the whole kind of MO these days.
No, I gotcha. Yeah, it is a lot easier to explain to yourself, have to make all right, I got to make a meeting to talk to myself about this kind of thing. But it is really cool just to do a process of how you make the songs. I've obviously listened to some music off Bone by Bone. I really like Title Track. I find it very catchy. I like, it's like, I really don't know how to describe the music off your song. It's like,
that's good.
Yeah, it's like, kind of psychedelic, but you've got some hard rock elements in there. You got a lot of different, you throw in a lot of different elements in your solo material.
Yeah, well, again, that's like, I love working with all the colors in the paint box, strings and banjos and distorted guitars and drum loops and everything I've encountered. Right now, I feel like I'm making the best use of all the decades of experimenting and trying things, and piano lessons as a little kid, and my dad's love of country music seeping in. And it's just like all on display right now. And I love it. Every time in life as a songwriter, when I identify my purpose, kind of like who I want to serve, like say with the Presidents, I wanted a room full of people to, get physical and lose their minds. With Casper Baby Pants, I wanted a family to unify, like the parents and the kids to really love the same song and unify over that. And with this new music, I'm looking for stuff that's more like an internal headphone experience that you might have that's like private. I'm not trying to, rock a crowd. I'm trying to rock your interior crowd. So every time I find a purpose and then I find a palette, like, okay, I want to use these kinds of sounds, a volcano of songs just explode. It's amazing. Like the Casper thing, I did 19 albums in 10 years. And what was it, 352 songs or something like that, 1,300 shows. I was obsessed. And then it was done. It just like arced, and I was like, okay, I'm moving on. So anyway, if I were talking through this podcast to people out there, I'd be like, it's really liberating when you find your limitations. Like in the Presidents, we did 2-string guitars and 3-string guitars, and there's somehow being hogtied a little bit focuses your intention, because you're not just about all the stuff you can do on with a ton of effects. And I don't know, I guess it's a matter of like, if you're off, for me, if I'm offered too many options, I get paralysis of choice, and knowing what I'm trying to accomplish really kind of like helps focus the songs and the way they're recorded. So.
Oh, exactly. And I actually had a similar conversation in one of my previous interviews. It is like the limitations actually kind of help you, because it helps you focus on like what the actual goal is. Sometimes if you get lost in trying to figure out how to accomplish that goal, you kind of lose like what the original intention of the goal was. Like one of my favorites is obviously I'm sure you're familiar with the Foo Fighters. They did their Wasting Light album, but they recorded it on analog tape.
Yeah,
for that whole, which one of my favorite albums. It just sounds amazing. But having that limitation, I think, brought out better music and better playing by them.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing too, is there's all these different ways to record that you have to find that what fits you, what makes you feel inspired. For some people it's analog. For me, it's absolutely digital. I mean, Pro Tools I treat it like a big 24 track tape deck, basically, with editing capabilities. It's the editing. It's like I can finish a song and then 2 months later realize, oh, that solo section should be half as long. Well, instead of cutting tape, which is just like, I just go in and go bloop and take it out. And then later realize, oh, no, it should be twice as long as it is. And then I just stretch it out. So anyway, oh my God, the automating the mix and the editing capability, I have Sir Mix-a-Lot to thank, actually. I was in a band, the Presidents formed a band with him around 1999, I think, to 2002-ish. And he's the one that dragged me kicking and screaming into the digital age. I was working with 8-track cassette, and I was handing him cassettes of ideas, like, here, maybe you can work with this. And he's like, what the hell is this? I knew what it was, but he was just like teasing me, like, what are you doing? So he told me what to buy, and I jumped in.
So I didn't know you guys had a band together. How did that come about? How did you meet Sir Mix-a-Lot?
Well, he called us because there was somebody in Seattle was making an album of Seattle bands, or maybe it was pairings of different Seattle bands playing Hendrix songs. So he thought of the Presidents, and we went out for a dinner, and that was the original conversation. It was like, which Hendrix songs are we going to do, and how are we going to do it? And then by the end of the dinner, we were getting along so great. We were just like, you know what? Let's just make our own songs. So we went in the studio and recorded a couple backing tracks, and then he took them to his studio and added vocals, and they were phenomenal. They were so good. They were like surfy and groovy and analog feeling, but with his like biting delivery over the top, and his voice is so amazing. So then we're like, okay, let's do more. Let's make an album. So we made an entire album, and we toured the West Coast, actually. But the whole thing kind of fell apart under its own the weight of these like expectations. It's going to be huge, and like we're reinventing the wheel, and we really weren't. We were having fun, and we did a great job, and we made a cool record, and we're still looking for like a way to put out that record that we can all agree on. I called the band Subset because when we were making the music, if you think of each member as a circle, the subset of space where we could all agree that this was good, was so small. It was like this tiny. So our subset was tiny, and eventually it just went to nothing.
I gotcha.
We still talk to Mix, and like I said, we're trying to find a way to put out the record. We were thinking about doing an NFT for a minute, and then that space got really smarmy and weird. We may end up just putting it up on the streamers, and calling it good. We were kind of trying to come up with something special, but anyway, we still talk all the time, and I love Anthony. He's a great human.
No, that's really awesome. Just just having different genres kind of collaborate. Obviously with like Presidents more like alternative punk rock kind of thing, but then Sir Mix-a-Lot more in the hip hop rap thing. But being able to combine like both of your expertise into music, I always find that cool when it's kind of like combining like rap and hip hop with like rock music.
Yeah, it can be really well done for sure. And we had a whole range. We had some real groovy. A lot of our stuff was kind of slinky and groovy, and it wasn't all hard hitting, which I really liked. Actually, Bone by Bone I wrote a song called Ribby Rib in the early 90s, I think. And when we were doing Subset, I had recorded a bunch of versions on cassette, but none of them were really hadn't released it yet, I don't think. And I offered it to Subset, and we did a version of that song called Ribby Rib in Subset. And then when I was doing my solo stuff, I was like, the Subset version's pretty good, but it's real muscular. It's real. Duh, duh. I was like, I think I want to try to, groove it out a little bit, give it space. And I changed the title. Bone by Bone was part of the lyrics before, but I made it the title and wrote new verses and stuff. So I really love how songs can expand and contract and breathe and die in different collaborative environments. Some of the President songs were songs from previous bands too, that just, Dave and Jason brought really special focus and talent to songs that I already had in some cases, and just made them pop like nobody else previously could have. So the chemistry of working with people is great. I kind of wish I was more self-aware back when I was working with them. Actually, our last President's album, Kudos to You, we made with Andrew, the guy that took over from Dave in 2004. And that record, I just gave up control. I just was like, here's a fragment. What do you guys think? And we just, together with our producer, we would kind of make a song happen in the moment. And that was the most liberating group recording that I've ever done. And it was finite. We did it in like 2 weeks and just had fun. We knew it was our last one, so we're just like, blah.
No, I got you. Yeah, when you know it's your last one, you just kind of, just let go with the flow and let it happen kind of
You
thing.
gotta leave it all on the floor, man. Yeah, I sang my ass off on that album.
No, it's just obviously, with the Presidents, like obviously I very much enjoy the music, but like just how like songs, as you said, kind of like change and like evolve really, just depending on like what atmosphere and what environments and how many years are kind of in between. Like you approach it with this mindset at this age, and you approach it at this mindset with an older age.
Yeah, what really turned me on to that, when after Mix set me up with Pro Tools, I got a CDJ 1000, which was a thing where you could put a CD in, and then it had an interface where you could manipulate it like an album, like scratch it and stuff like that. And then I got into DJ culture, and growing up with the Beatles, I really had this sort of idea that every song has an ultimate version. Like, because I think at some point, when the Beatles demos came out, what was that box set? It was around the year 2000, I think, the Anthology series. And you could hear like how they arrived at the final recording. And it cemented this idea in me that I'd had for a long time, which is like every song has an ultimate version where all the little parts and bells and whistles are happening. And that's it. And then you're done, where you never touch it, And then getting into DJ culture, I was like, oh, look, this song has a mix from November, and then it has a mix from February, and it's evolving and expanding, and people are trading beats, and it's plastic and elastic. And it took me a while to like undo my romantic vision of like songs having the ultimate version, but I undid it, and it's been really nice to kind of access that freedom to reimagine stuff. So that's why Bone by Bone is on that record, and why I called it Bone by Bone, because it's like being reconstructed bone by bone.
No, for sure. And it is hard, to like when you have like those very strong beliefs going out that like songs, once they hit their ultimate like version, that's it. But like now, I think nowadays stuff is way more fluid. Like,
yeah, even more than it was when I was into that stuff. But back in 2003, 4, 5, yeah, even stuff like the way people work on Instagram with. There's that one kid who's like, did you ever have a dream where and he's stuttering, and somebody put it to a drum beat, and it is so incredible. And then all these people are coming in like adding a bass, adding guitar. It's an incredible dreamlike collaborative world out there. I love it.
Oh yeah, I think nowadays, especially like I know genres are way more like concrete back then, but now like nowadays, like artists who were maybe in like a rock category are experimenting with like other genres and stuff. I think nowadays it's more accepted, I would assume, than compared to back then, than artists trying to just flip genres like album to album kind of thing. Yeah,
maybe so. Yeah, because there's more opportunity for you to be I guess like, you can release a single on Spotify or all the streamers, and it could be weird, and you can take a risk You're not risking your career as far as fulfilling everyone's expectations that have already been set up for what you're, capable of and not capable of. But there's less risk, of putting up a single, and in an environment where everybody can hear it immediately without any investment or, fear of like, in the old days, you'd go buy an album and it would be the only album you could buy that month because you didn't have, that's all your allowance. When I started buying albums, I was like 12, 11, 12, and I'd have to mow lawns and save my allowance. And a Beatles record was $4.97 at Peaches Records and Tapes. And so I had to like get $5 together, and I would end up with 3 gumballs and a Beatle record. But I knew I was going to score with the Beatle album. But then when I got all the Beatles albums, that's when I was like, oh my God, what do I do next? Like, it's going to take me a month to get $5 together to get a record. What am I going to buy? Anyway, it's much easier to take risks now.
Definitely.
And have it feel like it's not just going into a black hole, but people actually hear it.
Oh, definitely. Internet's very, very widely accessible nowadays. Plus, as you said, I think it's not as hard of a risk because if that single doesn't hit, there'll be you're probably gonna be working on another one that's released maybe 4 or 5, 6 months later. So it is softened the blow a little bit.
Yeah.
But, yeah, definitely. I did want to talk about wrapping up this interview. I do got just a couple more things if you don't mind staying on just a little bit longer.
Sure.
So I did want to just talk about Casper Baby Pants real quick. I know you kind of said that you kind of arced with that and then kind of dissipated. But I was curious, what inspired you to start creating music for toddlers?
Well, the whole time the presidents were happening, I had this kind of this signal coming from my gut instinct, kind of, that was saying, this is wonderful. Congratulations, but this is not your final destination. You got to keep going. And so I kept on searching and I started bands. I put out records under the name of the Giraffes and started a live band called the Giraffes. So I did the thing with Sir Mix-a-Lot. I had this thing with Tad from the Young Fresh Fellows. I had all these collaborations and experiments, and I started doing music for TV shows and movies and commercials, just trying to find this like sonic palette that my gut instinct voice was screaming about. And it took like 15 years before I finally met my second wife, Kate, and her artwork. Actually, that's some of her artwork right there. These little fish. It's folksy and funky and full of animals and really well made and bright and shiny and happy and silly. And I was like, oh, all those words are words I want to use to describe this music that I can't quite figure out. So I started making songs directly inspired by her art and just realized, oh, it's for 0 to 5-year-olds. It's for little kids and their parents. And a bunch of stuff had happened simultaneously where I'd kind of become aware of how important stress management is for new parents, how parent education is so important for forging empathetic bonds between parents and children that then allow children to grow up feeling safe, and then you get a productive member of society when they grow up, rather than somebody who's got PTSD and thinks there's always a tiger in the woods about to chop their head off. So I wanted to really take care of the parents and take care of the kids so they could be in the same room and get that bond even tighter with music. So yeah, everything came together, and it just blossomed. And I was really focused and really fulfilled doing that. It was amazing. So yeah, that's kind of the whole arc of that. But then, like I said, after 19 albums, I was like, I said it all.
Yeah, for sure. You definitely reached that point where, you don't have anything else to say. You kind of said, especially through 19 albums and, what you said, about 10 years or less than 10 years.
10 years.
Yeah, it's a lot. That's a lot. You covered a lot, with 19 albums in 10 years. Now, did anyone recognize you? Like when you said you played shows as Casper Baby Pants, right? Did people recognize you as hey, aren't you from Presidents of the United States of America?
Oh yeah, totally, all the time. It was no secret, and I think maybe there was a healthy percentage of families that came because the parents were into the band, into the rock band. So yeah, it fed. I mean, the Casper thing was inside the president's thing. I always say the analogy is like planet presidents had a Casper core, but then it had an outer shell of innuendo and sexuality and the friction between innocence and innuendo. So I just took out that adult aspect, and there was the same molten core was Casper Baby Pants. It was in there the whole time, So it was a pretty easy transition, and just a step to the left or whatever.
No, I got you. It's just so cool, like how obviously it's like they're kind of in the same kind of similar realm as you said with like the Presidents and Casper Baby Pants. But if you just tweak a little bit and remove, as you said, kind of the more adult themes and stuff, that you have Casper Baby Pants.
Yeah, it was an amazing discovery. It was like, oh my God, it was here the entire time, like 15 years of searching, and I was sitting right on the solution. So but that's what it took, I always kind of used to think, oh man, if I'd figured it out earlier, I'd be the king of kids music now.
I mean, you eventually did figure it out, but yes, it's all right.
It is kind of funny because it's like I didn't strategize doing kids music at all. I only solved a problem, the problem of this gut feeling that there was something else was solved by it, but it wasn't a plan at all. It was just like a message, from the universe.
Yeah, no, exactly. You had that calling to there's the part of you that like you have this calling that you want to make this kind of style of music, and you did it very successfully too.
Yeah, thanks. It was super fun.
Definitely. Now, I got one more question, then we wrapping this up. I have not asked this question in a while, and I'm very curious for you because I'm not actually sure how you're going to answer this. Mm-hmm. So, if you recorded what you consider to be the most perfect album, but it was never released, would you be content knowing you recorded it, or would you want it released to the people?
Oh, I'd be content knowing it. Now, would I be able to listen to it?
Yeah, your music, yes.
Then I'd totally be content. Yeah, okay. Yeah. I'm a huge fan of myself. I mean, like, I can put on this, especially this solo stuff I'm working on, and all the Casper and most of the President stuff, actually, the vast majority of it. I can put it on and be like, I love this. I remember when the Presidents broke up, and we were broken up for 5 years, and we did that thing with Sir Mix-a-Lot and all that stuff during that time, but we got back together, and learning those songs again. And I listened to all the albums, and I was just like, I love this. This is so good. Which I've asked professional like filmmakers and musicians. It's kind of one of my questions I ask people is like, do you watch your own movies? Do you watch your own TV shows? Do you, listen to your own albums, read your own book? And 99% of them say no. They don't want anything to do with their stuff. I don't get it. I'll put on my solo records because that's kind of what I'm into these days, and just it works on me the way I hope it works on other people, which is just I groove off and I kind of start to, get super relaxed. I fall asleep actually when I listen to my solo stuff, and that's kind of what I want people to do, is to feel like cuddled and safe, and they can just like drift off. Anyway, so yeah, I would absolutely. If it were not, I have tons of songs that I listen to almost on a daily basis that are not released to the public that I'm working on, and that's fine. Although I guess I'm redoing my will right now, and I do think about like if I did pass away tomorrow or something, I definitely want all those songs to be released, because why not? So posthumously, yes, but currently I would pick. I'm fine with just me listening to them.
No, I was just curious. I wasn't sure which way you were thinking on that, but no, very good explanation with that. And like, it's funny. Like, I fall in that 1%. Like, I will watch my interview. Like, before I go to bed, I want to watch one of my previous. Like, if I really enjoyed an interview, like I want to go back and watch it, kind of thing. But I do know a lot of people, like whatever books, movies, music, whatever. A lot of people won't revisit if they created something. They don't revisit it.
Yeah, I personally don't understand it. I mean, I feel like if I created it, well, see, that's why I like working alone, because I am, again, ruthlessly editing and sculpting and, muting elements to get to the, like, what feels like I can feel it when it's right, and like, I just want to, if I listen to the song later, I feel that again. I feel but if you're, I guess maybe, I mean, it's just me talking. Collaboration is great. People love it. But my experience has been that it's the collaborative element and the sort of giving up of ground when you have a vision that then makes it harder for me to listen. I guess when I ask my filmmaker friends about it, I understand, because like there are so many fingers in the pie when you're making a movie, like an unbelievable number of influences and people, from the lighting director to the editor. And so I could see where you're watching your movie and you see everybody else's fingerprints and not your own, but I only see my own. So why wouldn't I love them?
No, exactly. No, but you're a little bit different because obviously you said your solo work is completely your own with like movies and other things that there's a lot of, as you said, a lot of other things going on. It's not just solely someone else. Now there are some movies where it's solely someone like filmed, edited, and recorded and that stuff. But
yeah, like Bo Burnham. Bo Burnham's that special he did during COVID is incredible, and it's all him. It's kind of amazing.
Yeah, definitely. I've only seen parts of it, but yeah, it's just so cool. Just that obviously COVID, you had more you had the time and he had all the equipment and expertise to do it. But yeah, it turned out really good.
Yeah, it's amazing.
For sure. Now, Chris, I do got one more thing before we go. So 2023, it's already March. So what's kind of the rest of this year looking like for you?
Well, I'm the pattern I've settled into with these solo records is I do one every July and every January. So just July. Right now, I'm finishing up the one that will be coming out in July. So just I'm retired basically. I'm making these records, but I'm not really sweating it, just putting them out. And I live in the country on an island, and I just walk around. I work in the yard. I eat food. I hang out with my daughter and her boyfriend who are living with us at the moment, and make these albums and hang out with friends. And so that's basically 2023. Just create and hang out. I'm basically living like I'm 25 again, and it's really great. I actually have a 25-year-old son, and when I talk to him on the phone, our lives are pretty much identical, except I don't work at a deli and he does.
My God, it sounds like you got obviously sounds like you got a great year ahead of you. A lot of it sounds pretty chill, not much stress. I hope the rest of your goes good for it, and definitely look forward to hearing more new music in July. Yeah,
the next album is called Now I See, and it's coming out mid-July, and it'll be up on all the streamers for free and all that noise. So, yeah, thanks for having me. It's fun to talk about myself.
Well, I've heard you're a big fan of Chris.
I am a big fan. Hey, look! Oh my God, it's the guy. It's that guy.
Well, I don't know if you're familiar with Ben Bailey. He's Cash. He was on the host of Cash Cab. He's a comedian. It's funny. Yeah. He was telling me, I was watching one of his specials. He was saying that like he had people walk up to him on the street and go, "You're the Cash Cab guy," and he goes, "What? I didn't know that."
I am. Oh my God, I'm late. I gotta get there.
So that's what you did reminded me of that. But Chris, thank you so much for stopping by Super Cool Radio. It was an incredible time hanging out with you. Thank you for stopping by for extended time. Kept you a little bit longer, but I really appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure, Matthew. Thanks for doing what you do, and thanks for having me.
Of course. For Chris Ballou, I am your host as always, Matthew Thomas. Thanks so much for watching and listening to Super Cool Radio. And remember, stay frosty.
Wow.